real quick, I mean, you help people get hired. That is what you do, kind of across a vast, an array of different technologies and resumes and interviews. I mean, it really is kind of it's quite a, I wouldn't call it convoluted, but there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle when you try to get a job.
Absolutely. Yeah, and, the resume, and we're going to be talking about a specific type of resume because this, for whatever reason, has been coming up a little bit more and more than usual lately. But yeah, it's the resume itself and the cover letter, any written materials that you use are kind of one piece in the puzzle. It has to, especially these days with the job market, as you said, is getting healthier in Seattle. Still, though, a lot of applicants for every job. Not maybe as many as a year and a half ago or so. Sure. But still plenty of...
You had to spray it with perfume just to get it noticed.
Exactly, yeah. Or send them a samurai sword as
hey,
your idea
that's my thing.
Yeah. But... yeah, so you have to it's a multi-pronged attack, basically, and one of the most important things is networking. So knowing somebody inside an organization or getting to know people who have connections is more important than it ever was. So the combination of a really great resume and actually having somebody hand deliver it to a decision maker can be a really, really powerful way to go.
Is that, I want to ask a quick question on that because it seems to me that LinkedIn and Facebook, at least LinkedIn,
right
at the beginning, you're connected with somebody, and that's like, oh, that person could introduce me to that person. Right. But now I have like 2,000 LinkedIn friends. I don't even know who half of them are, let alone would I be comfortable calling them or emailing them, right?
Right.
Is that why these personal relationships are becoming so much more important, and rather than what I'm starting to call these technoships or technology friendships that people have?
Right. And yeah, that's very true, and it can become very convoluted, and you don't, as you say, you don't even know who these people are. That's kind of the point sometimes, though, is that you can avail yourself of those contacts, and you can get to know them through that portal, and make that connection that you might not have had access to before. So there's a way to use that to your advantage. But yes, I absolutely think that, the greatest resume of all time isn't going to by itself do the job. And this is what I stress to the folks that I work with, because I want them to succeed. And I'm not going to tell them that the resumes or the cover letters that I create are going to get, quote unquote, always get them a job, right?
100%.
Right. It gives you a better chance, I think, to get an interview. It works
all the time.
Right. It might give you a better chance to get in front of somebody, but you need to approach it from as many, you got to attack it from all angles, without a doubt.
So when somebody is maybe just graduated or first time getting a job,
right?
Of course, once you've been in an industry for a while, industries seem to be pretty incestuous in that you kind of know people from other companies, and you're going to have friends who maybe work in a department that you're interested in.
Right.
But when you come out of college, it's quite a bit different, isn't it? You probably don't have those friendships. I mean, your peers are also coming out of college or whatnot.
A little bit different, though. There's, you shouldn't assume that you can't leverage contacts no matter what stage of your career, or haven't even started your career yet. So you should always be thinking in terms of that. Even if you're in college, let's say your parents might know people. Let's say you have an older brother, older sister that has a network of people that you can avail yourself of. So there's always a way. You're right, though, that you don't have that established network of professionals yet. And so the topic has come up for whatever reason. I've been getting lately more and more. I've always gotten them before, but more and more either recent college graduates or someone who's been like a stay-at-home parent for a number of years, never have needed a resume before, either entering the workforce for the first time, or they've been out of the workforce for 15 years and they're getting back into it.
Which is kind of like first time.
Pretty similar.
It's like born again.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a similar approach. What I'm kind of going to focus on today, though, is that recent college. Although it's similar, the recent college graduate even has some sort of characteristics about it that are even more unique, and so we're going to sort of talk about that.
Yeah, help me understand, because I am not a recent college graduate, although sometimes I like to think so. I have to look back and go, man, that was like 12 years ago.
And it's so much different for me, it was like 20 plus years ago. It's so much different now. You've got oh my God, it's ridiculously different now. I mean, with social media, before when we were starting out, I mean, literally it was like a Smith Corona for me. for me, was like a Smith Corona typed resume
Right.
that was mailed like through the mail, which is just sounds like a horse and buggy
Right.
to people today.
I mean, you get it by stamps.
But that's the way it was. And networking might have even been more important then, but it's certainly extremely important
But
today.
there wasn't like the networking groups. I mean, all this fascination with networking was not there.
And unfortunately, with these advantages of like being able to get yourself out there, come these inherent red flags and disadvantages. People who have spent like the last 4 years in college littering their Facebook page with like frat party photos and whatnot. I mean, depending on the content of like whatever has been put in there, unfortunately, what you have done is you've created a library of reasons why someone might question hiring you. I mean, it really is true. So like if I'm dealing with somebody where that's already happened, you have to kind of play damage control on that. But, hopefully folks have had the common sense to not put just crazy things or offensive things on their Facebook so that someone can look back into their history and find this, because they are doing that. Employers are looking at people's Facebook
Well, I'll tell you,
pages and accounts.
when people apply, and we've hired lots of people throughout the years,
Right.
I oftentimes glance at this is just the way I do it. Like, I'll glance at a cover letter, glance at the resume, and then I'm like on to LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah,
because there's
true.
like a picture history. It's almost easier.
Right. And it's more that's a little more, or it seems more personal. It seems like you're having some kind of more of an intimate contact with the person when you seek out those.
Yeah, and more
venues.
Genuine, because it's probably not you probably didn't write it.
Right, exactly. Well, there you go. But yeah, so there's all those things that are in the mix before you even begin the process, okay? That may be out there, whatever, and so it's just, what I'm saying is it's just a different world than it is, than it was. And so the resume, you could even argue it's more important today than it was before, because it's a chance for you to show that you're a professional and be as professional as you possibly can be. And I constantly get questions about, well, what kind of a resume should I create for myself when I have absolutely no professional history at all, other than I worked at Target or something while I was in college? I mean, let's say that was the case, or like a fast food place. And I get these submissions of recent college graduate resumes where they will do a reverse chronology resume, and they will literally list like all these different places that they worked, because they feel like because it was a paid job, somehow it has more value.
And it has nothing to do with the job they're applying for.
I get like fast food jobs. It's like that isn't really going to tell anybody anything. It's like good to know that you worked while you were in college, I suppose, or maybe even before college.
These little 3-month and 6-month stints at different stops.
It's all about like you have to approach yourself like a product. I mean, that's what you have to do. By actually having a job section that's Burger King or whatever it was, is that helping me to get hired at this place?
At Microsoft?
Exactly, where I want to be. And I literally get these submissions of resumes that have that stuff. And I think it's because people don't know what to put in, because they don't have that professional frame of reference and that professional history.
Kevin Daniels joins me with Northwest Resume and Career Services. Kevin, so what should people be putting in their resume fresh out of college?
You should not assume that because it was an internship and you didn't get paid for it, that it doesn't have value, especially if it has to do with what you want to be doing going forward. So you should literally list internships as if, just like you would a paid job, and talk about your responsibilities and accomplishments in exactly the same way as you would have if it was a paid job. You can do the same, even if you didn't, let's say you didn't do internships, okay? You can take your academic career and you can treat that like it was employment, and I'll explain that. You can talk about classes that you took. Let's say you were a business major and you took a class in project management, and you did like 3 or 4 different simulated projects where you were the project manager of the whatever simulated project for ABC company or whatever it was. That has value because it's actual, even though it was simulated and it's in a kind of a classroom setting. It shows leadership skills. It shows you have an understanding of business, or you've attained some type of understanding of business and marketing, business planning, strategic development while you were taking those classes. And you should talk about those experiences just the same way you would as if it was an employment situation, because it's illustrating to the employer that you might have those transferable skills and abilities even if you haven't worked for Microsoft for 6
Sure,
months. Sure,
and that makes a lot of sense because that is something that would, at minimum, it gets people thinking in the right way.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. The other thing people ask is, should I use, and well, I get this question for all kinds of resumes, should I use an objective statement? How should I start my resume? Well, even for a recent college graduate or someone still in college who's putting their resume together, I'm away from the objective statement, and for the same reason for everyone, really, and that's because it tends or has tended to focus on what that individual is looking to gain for themselves. Often it tells absolutely nothing about anything that's relevant. It'll be something like, seeking a challenging position for a successful established company in which I can use my skills and build
my resume.
Right, exactly. So what that says is this person is out to get experience for themselves. With the reader of the resume, even when it's a recent college graduate, the thing that they're most interested in is not what you're seeking to gain in your career, although they might want an ambitious person, but they care about how you're going to be able to help them. And even as a recent college graduate, you can help a company or organization that you're interested in. There's ways you can illustrate how you can actually help them. And the best way to do it, even if you have no professional history, is what we call a professional summary, or professional profile. And for someone who's never worked, it's going to look similar. It's just you're not going to be able to cite specific examples of work successes. What you will be able to do is talk about your skills, your abilities. You might be able to throw some information about academic successes or successes, as I said, like doing a project in school or an internship. And you talk about them accomplishment-wise exactly the same way you would do it as if you'd been working for 10 or 15 years.
It could be something as like from a marketing class. I led this group into creating a marketing platform for company X.
Exactly. And sometimes they actually use real companies that end up using ideas that students have come up with. Mm-hmm. And that's how you win, is because you were the one that was chosen by whatever company it was. That's even better because that's almost like real-world experience. An actual company actually used it. But even if it wasn't real, in quotes, it was real in the sense that you were building abilities and skills that can be used in a real world job.
You went through the motions.
Exactly.
Right? So there's a level of experience. What about GPAs? I think that are GPAs overused? Because I think
probably overused.
A lot of people I feel like who are really successful in business are not necessarily the 4.0 students.
Bill Gates dropped out of college.
Right.
Yeah. And the whole thing, it's just the decision whether to include a GPA, you just use the same criteria you always do. Does it help me? Does it add something? If you had a 4.0 the entire time you were in college, that's something to be pretty proud of. And you definitely want to say if you were like, on the dean's list every quarter or you won academic awards, those things should be listed, certainly. Sure. As far as listing your specific GPA, that's entirely up to you. If you're proud of it, if you feel like it's important, if you feel like it's going to add something, add it. There's no hard and fast rule about anything with resumes, really. In my entire professional history, when I worked for companies before I started doing what I do now, I was never once asked in any interview what my GPA was in college. I never was. They don't ask it. They're not really mostly concerned with it,
most people
frankly.
Who are hired are a few years out of college where it's like, your GPA. I mean, everybody has seen people be successful, and it had nothing to do with how well they did in school for the most part.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's not the end of the world if you do include it. It's not a bad thing.
What was your GPA, Kevin?
Forget it. I partied a lot, Ben. I had a lot of extracurricular activities.
That's what I put. My hobby list was huge on the bottom of my resume.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a judgment call. But it's not a bad thing if you do, and it's not a bad thing if you don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kevin, we have about a minute left before we have to go to break. When you start looking at, a lot of people want references, things of that nature.
Right.
Do you start putting teachers? Do you put your parents, friends? It's tough to have professional references if you are, fresh out of college.
Yeah, just like with a normal resume, I don't suggest putting references on the resume itself. That's something that's going to come a little bit later if they're interested in you. I would put references provided upon request. Whatever references you can, again, it's going to be the same kind of networking process that you would use. Anyone who, let's say it's a friend of the family who's known you for years, who's the president of some company or big up in some company who can say a couple nice things about you. It could be a professor, a college professor, who knows. Yeah. It could be somebody that you know who's already in the working world that you knew from, who knows. But yeah, it's going to be the same kind of process. And again, there's no hard and fast fast rules on who you choose for that.
And it sounds like no matter what, this networking piece really still is a big part of it.
Definitely a big part of
getting
it.
somebody who's on the inside who can somewhat vouch for you rather than
Right.
having to maybe have some of these
Right.
external references.
Right. And there's no hard and fast rules on where any of these sections go in the resume either, just like with any resume. But some people, if you're really proud of your education and if you did great things in school, put your education section first.
Yeah.
Make it the highlight of the resume.
And if you're like us,
right, then you put it at the back.
on the
and
back.
You downplay it.
Yeah.
Or you
No.
say, if you're interested in my education, ask me
Ask
at
me,
the
yeah.
bottom and fine
I'll
print.
be happy to pick
Exactly.
and choose a
There
few
you-
things.
there
You know
go.
what's funny, and we do have to go, but wasn't there kind of this epidemic of people just falsifying graduation and GPAs for a while because employers never check?
Right. Well, yeah, and I never recommend that.
But no,
people did it.
people have done it.
Remember when coaches were getting busted right and left for saying they had degrees? This was probably 10, 15, but there were maybe more recently than that. Some guy for Notre Dame that was hired by Notre Dame was fired within 2 days because he said he had some degree that he didn't have or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it happens all the time.
You'd
yeah.
think that people would remember if they went to college
Exactly.
or whatnot. And, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Now you're going to get all the people from the right calling in and yelling about Obama, you know?
Okay. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He's Kenyan too.
Yeah.